I'm going to quickly address feedback from part 1, then we'll dive right into it. First bit of feedback was that the intro on part 1 had bad audio. I'm sorry, I'm merely an oaf with a microphone, you're now listening to a new one. Second piece of feedback was that I'm cringe and soy. I'm aware, however, the first person I saw calling me that was a VTuber with a jester/octopus mommy MILF avatar, so I'm legally and contractually obligated to say the call is coming from inside the house, Miss Splatoon. Also, there was a guy with like a Transformers smoking a cigar. We're all involved in a video about a man called Grummz. Have some self-reflection, I guess. Third bit of feedback was that I look like Timu Hassan. Thank you. Fourth, why didn't I take this to a journalist or TMZ? Firstly, I don't think TMZ would want to touch this with a 10-foot pole. And secondly, most games journalists are happy to ignore Mark. He was actively trying to get in front of the story anyway. So while I tried to convince a journalist that I don't really have a connection to cover it, Mark would have already had control of his own narrative. So if you are a journalist wanting to do something about this, everything's in the description and you can contact me there as well. And finally, the intro in part 1 was way too long. Yes, so let's get started. Mark Kern is a liar and a fraud. I want to make it clear there's no insane smoking guns like highly illegal pornography or murder here. This is a deep dive into some more of the financial irregularities from Mark's end. Some legally interesting things he's done around his companies, and also some thoughts and questions about exactly how much of a fraud he is in all aspects of his career. So let's get into it. Grummz had kind of scooped part 1, emphasis on kind of, because he had an awareness that something was happening. He was so smug about it, he went on a live stream with one of the most nightmarish blunt rotations I've seen in recent memory. Part of the reason I dangled a part 2 out there was to see what he'd try and deflect and what he wouldn't want to talk about. Fortunately for me, and unfortunately for him, this stream gave me a lot of sound bites to talk about that people aren't going to be aware of because the stream's now locked behind a members only piece.
You got nothing, and you're gonna get 0 views just like you always have for your entire duration of your YouTube campaign. And you know what? You're getting an FBI report next week. I'm sorry.
It's 4 hours of what I would charitably call Cocomelon for capital G gamers, and I don't think anyone who isn't brain poisoned should watch it, so let's pull the highlights.
Guess what, guys? I did softcore porn, and I started when I was working on World of Warcraft, and I made a bunch of money.
Indulge me as I start with this one, because this is factually incorrect. We have a backup of every Wayback Machine page archived on foxyfighter.com. There is 100 plus archived milk and milking references in this content, along with a death and blood tag. Varied interests there. We have the literature he wrote where his alter ego, Debbie Chan, violently abused a woman with the same nickname as his wife. And we found some video that he commissioned and produced. Well, either produced by him or he paid to produce. His own posts out him as commissioning fights from a custom porn company called Double Trouble. This was on a site called Heavy R. Heavy R is known for hosting extreme and graphic videos far outside of mainstream. So this is real-world violence, highly graphic material. You will not find this video on a more mainstream site. I'm not saying Mark uploaded it, but it's one of Foxy Fighter's. There's definitely others, and likely not even the most extreme video. We also have it on DVD, by the way. It's called Tylene vs. Shayla, and the description is, 2 women wrestlers are chained together in the ring and have a real busting fight, and loser winds up with her beaten to a bloody pulp. Not softcore. This is the part that I feel people took issue with from some aspects. This is not just a guy making Gooner material, this is a guy making highly abusive material.
This is why people in the gaming space think if you're looking outside and you're looking into the game space, people think everybody's fucking weird. Because there's gaming and tech writers who have fucking fantasies about the ridiculously awful things that were just said. These people give all gamers, everybody who plays games, everybody who covers tech, everybody on the internet a bad fucking name.
Thank you, friend of the show, Stuttering Craig. He's not a friend of the show. Hey, look, that's Yellow Flash guy, the guy that most of the other clips are on. This is from a completely different, irrelevant beef, but just want to make sure everyone's on the same page here, right? We're all going in the same way. Who am I kidding? Hypocrisy doesn't matter to these freaks. And there are going to be people on both sides of the spectrum, of the political spectrum, being like, so, isn't this sex work? Isn't this kink? This isn't kink or sex work. This is a man who has effectively done financial fraud to fund his porn business on the side. That's my big contention here.
I am the Hugh Hefner of Blizzard. That's what they got 20 years ago.
It was 20 years ago, I'll give him that. Look, Foxy Fighters was first active in 2001, the same time he was working at Blizzard. It was also 15 years ago when you sold catfights.com to John Femfight. Insane username, by the way, I'm stealing that at some point. 14 years ago, 2011 as well, Foxy Fighter joined Quora, which you followed on your other Grummz account for some reason. Debbie Chan, you made a Reddit account where you fish in a strip club DJ's AMA on Reddit, asking if when strippers fight, a boob's a favorite target, and saying you'd put stilettos in nasty places. I don't want to say that's typed one-handed, but this was all around the time you were running Red 5 Studios, a studio where you have a lot of baggage around financial mismanagement, disappearing for weeks at a time, and then coming back and tearing up the work that was done while you weren't there. It was also 10 years ago when you were actively recruiting for filming in 2016 and selling the clips on Clips for sale. And then it was 4 years ago when Ember Production is on a hiatus with no meaningful updates. You try and bring Foxy Fighter back with those stories I mentioned about Debbie Chan violently abusing women. This is after you'd already taken money to crowdfund Ember, by the way. And you, dear listeners, you get the point that I'm laying down here. This is a man who has a 20-year pattern of taking money to do one thing, but going off and doing his own weird porn side hustle with the money. That's the contention I have here. That's what I want you to understand. This isn't just kink on the side. This is kink, but using money he's taken from other ventures to fund it. That is fundamentally fraudulent. That's what I'm getting at. That is my contention here. I also have questions about the involvement of his parents, because this actually lines up incredibly well with the tax fraud he's also done.
So Lunar Ride asks in the chat, did Mark pay his mom as CEO of his porn company?
Actually, no, not for CEO of the porn company. She does work, as the accountant, as the financial manager for my current company.
So this is the part that confuses me a little bit. Your mother was the CEO on paper, but not paid. Suspiciously around the time you got that previously mentioned massive lien from the state of California. She was just doing that out of the goodness of her heart, but also being the accountant, but CEO on paper. I'm just trying to make sure I've got that. And while I'm on the subject of your mom, why did you know off the top of your head that what year and month she was in Playboy magazine?
Oh, she was hot, man. She was hot.
So is that something that is like cool to explore, or is that something that you'd rather not?
1967, the year before I was born, Christmas edition. And I talked to my mom about this, and she's totally cool with it. If you want to go find that issue and find a section called Women of Asia, she's in there, and she would actually appreciate it if you actually talked about that and posted it. She would get
I do like the Asian women.
If I knew this about my own mother, I would probably be as badly adjusted as Mark is. And while we're on the subject of Playboy bunny mums, this makes the 3D model of the Ember bunny girl with a Playboy bunny outfit so much weirder. Anyway, moving on, I just want to point out that that's just kind of weird. Let's talk about the Firefall bus. Grummz claimed in this tweet that his bus was cool. His bus was cool and far more useful than the South of Midnight bus. And I'm not here to judge which bus is better. The part that sticks out to me is that he says it saved him millions from an E3 booth. And look, a lot of people are going to hyper dunk on Grummz for the bus. What you're not understanding is that if there's anything famous for maintaining its value, it's a poorly modified bus filled with computer equipment. Luckily, until this bus was made, we'd never seen what happens when you combine both. This is the real capstone of Mark's time as the CEO at Red 5, the infamous Firefall bus. Look at it, it's perfection. I get the vision, a modified vehicle turned billboard that would travel across the country to host localized competitions for your Firefall esports. Like, definitely a thing that was going to exist. This thing was stuffed full of the latest computer tech and had hydraulics that let it expand so you could fit more people inside. Reportedly, the bill from West Coast Customs was about $3 million, and you say this bad boy saved you money? I found probably not the most ideal source, it's gamesindustry.biz. A 600 square foot booth at E3 around this time cost $10,000 a day. So for a 3-day event, that's $30K. Add in your booth fit out, labor, and incidentals, that shit starts adding up, right? Your own budget for the E3 you skip for the Sopa Piper protest at Red 5 was $50K, by the way. So fuck it, let's make it $200K a year. Were you planning to bring this same bus to E3 for the next 15 years? Let's include the other events that cost pennies on the dollar compared to E3. It would still probably, I want to ballpark it at about 10 years to make this money back. We're not even including labor costs. Brand ambassadors aren't cheap. I've paid for those before. And what about the cost of an inevitable refurb when a neckbeard spills a drink on the keyboard and seat? Maintaining those hydraulics costs a pretty penny, most likely, and we'll need to upgrade the computers every few years as we go through graphics creep. Plus the cost of moving it everywhere. The bus didn't work and had to be towed everywhere. How much towing is that going to cost? I have it on good authority that the air conditioning in the bus failed so quickly in the E3 parking lot that people couldn't even get inside. It overheated the computers. If there's anyone smarter than me that can make the math work, please do so in the comments. Mark always tries to claim that, oh, they're saying there's no demo for my game. There is a demo. I'm gonna put footage of it on the screen. Your backers know there's a demo. No one's disputing this, aside from people refusing to give you the benefit of the doubt. And I want to be charitable to Mark. The demo kind of exists. But this is just another woefully mismanaged game for about the third game in the row. Like, come on, homie. You released a updated build for your vertical slice, and I want you to imagine air quotes around vertical slice because it's not really that has a specific meaning, but you're using it to pull the wool over people's eyes. This was shortly after Goonernomicon Part 1 dropped. Before this, well, this is what the female model looked like, and this is what the male model looked like. You claimed these are bugged, and this will eventually be fixed. The keyword there is eventually. You've had these models for a length of time that can be measured in years, so I feel like that argument is invalid. What you've actually done is remove the ability for players to leave their mech suits to cover up your shortcomings. Aside from that fix months and months ago, this whole new build, months of work, consisted of adding 2 new models that you made more than half a year ago and took 6 months to texture, replace 1 gun on the mech suit, slam a bunch of Unreal Engine store assets in to replace any white boxes, and turning the skybox purple. The contention is Grummz is fundamentally incapable of working on the game without an outside source pressuring him into it. Until recently it's been, this'll be a big year for Ember. I'm making a tabletop RPG for Ember. I'm working on the novelization for Ember. I've got to retexture this model I promised 4 months ago for Ember. If Mark promises a timeline, you can double it and probably correctly guess the right timeline. Ember started crowdfunding in 2017. He told people he needed $60,000 in 6 to 8 months, so it would be Kickstarter ready. It is now 2025. We are nearly 8 years later, and it looks like this. This includes a 2-year break where he continued to crowdfund while not working on the game, and he only started up again when people pressured him into it. Is that not fundamentally criminally fraudulent behavior? I'm not the only person bringing this up. There are other YouTubers and content creators doing so. You can look at what McDizzle is digging up and what Nazmir is putting out. They will have links in the description. It's not just people with microphones and platforms, it's your own backers at this point. To help this along, I'm going to walk people through a detailed look at Ember's production timeline and exactly where you failed to live up to your promises. I'm going to start this in May 25th, 2016. Kern goes on the Firefall subreddit telling players to kill the game. Firefall was still alive at this point. It wasn't doing well, but he wanted them to kill the game so he could buy back the IP for cheap. This was the same year Mark had basically self-inserted into the Bring Back WoW Classic petition, and he'd somehow managed to leverage clout off something that he had next to no involvement with, but he spun that into the Make Ember petition. He's a petition hog. So on June 27, 2016, we get our change.org petition to make Ember. Weird to convince yourself. He says he was using it to see how much demand there was, but it's still weird that you'd petition hog yourself. On June 30th, 2016, the Foxy Fighter Patreon goes live with peak earnings just below $50 a month at launch with 6 paid members. Sorry, wrong business. Run by your mother. July 6, 2016, you launch an Indiegogo campaign for Ember, forums, website, and art. That is a nice and respectable $500 goal, raising $3,065. And I think, to be honest, you can make a forum for like $20. And as a forums lover, I respect the fact you made a forum in 2016. They are a dying breed. Props to commissioning an artist. I will give you that. Time advances to August 29, 2016. A second Indiegogo campaign hits the crowdfunder's wallet with Ember, massive planetary wargame, wage full-scale war against alien kaiju in a massive co-op shooter. This one is a $5,000 goal, eventually raises $23,000. You want to build 3D and design assets, really take Ember to the next level. Your deliverables are pretty respectable, to be honest, grounded and simple, which is what we want for a small developer. The main goal of this milestone is to create the fully textured 3D model of the Thumper mecha and create an illustrated design vision book that defines the game. One thing that I need to point out is the Thumper is basically a side activity from Firefall. It's a side quest, like a world quest in World of Warcraft. He spent 8 years trying to remake a World of Warcraft world quest as his vertical slice. Just to put this into context, you're promising this is going to be in a white box test environment, engaging, I guess, and if someone stumps up enough money, they will get the model to make their own 3D printed bust. We're getting there, it'll be playable. I do want to flag a note here where you say, currently each milestone is designed to be funded and delivered in less than 2 months. So we're going to skip ahead to milestone 3. The third Indiegogo crowdfunding campaign closes on July 5th, 2017. Not quite the pace we wanted, but it was funded for $114,000 between Indiegogo and PayPal donations. This was off of $20,000 goal, so we're 3 from 3 on overshooting funding goals, which is nice work. Mark's pretty good at raising money, I will give him that. I'm also not going to hold a slight delay here against you yet. Game dev is hard. And Mark, look, he's delivered his first 2 milestones. There's a slight delay to milestone 3 starting, it's nothing major. Unfortunately, this is where things go off the rails. Grummz promises a playable mock-up in 6 months, Kickstarter for the full game a month or 2 after that. Obviously, the $114,000 doesn't go that far, because on July 24th, 2018, you start offering upgrades to Milestone 3 backers as a limited time offer until the Kickstarter later this year. And later this year slips past, and the whole year does. Debbie resurfaces on freecatfights.com and asks if there's demand for the return of Foxy Fighter. We love to see a well-rounded man with hobbies. On Jan 28th, 2019, we get our first playable mock-up of Ember.
Welcome to another video update for Ember, the Mech vs. Kaiju MMO. The first actual gameplay build of Ember is now available for download. The movement demo features our medium omniframe running, jetpacking, and gliding. This is a huge update for us, as this is the first time you can pilot the omniframe. Fans and backers were thrilled with the fast-paced and fluid movement, switching between running and jetting and dropping glider pads for those Firefall memories. Backers can download this now at my.ember.com, that's spelled E-M-8-E-R, and subscribers now have access to the previous terrain build. For more video, be sure to watch our Twitch channel, which streams every Thursday. The link is in the description. We've released 2 builds in the past month, starting with our tropical-themed terrain build earlier this month and culminating in the movement demo. This is a record for the Ember team and a sign that things are heating up as we get closer to Kickstarter.
Expect new builds of the game at a much faster pace.
So 3 crowdfunding rounds in, upgrades, and next step is a Kickstarter. Let me just check in on how the Kickstarter went, and well, we're coming up on $600,000, $700,000, $800,000 in funds raised. It's really opaque there, but there's still no Kickstarter in the year of our Lord 2025. How are your backers taking it? Not great. I want to highlight one particular backer that stuck out to me. His name is Mad Dog. Mad Dog has donated close to $700 to Ember. He has unfortunately lost hope, and he's been losing it for a while. Even as far back as 2021, he was concerned, wanting to know when we might get to an open alpha or beta. As of writing, he's at least 75 years old, and he's been strung along for close to a decade over something that's still not to the state you said it would be at the end of 2018. I'm going to try and put aside the fact we're on wildly different sides of the political spectrum and approach this hopefully objectively. If this timeline and neglect was done by any other game developer of note, Mark would be pissing, shitting, and crying on Twitter that it was a scam. That's not a particularly partisan opinion to hold. If there's nothing that Mark Kern takes away from this video, give Mad Dog his money back and a sincere personal apology that you failed him. You have taken $700 from a 75-year-old man desperately trying to recapture a time when he was happier. And it's fucked. Anyway, back to dunking on a guy I don't like for political reasons. It's now 2025. The promised playable build is, like I said, freshly updated as shortly after my last video. There's been one other tiny update since then. All of your white box assets have been hardly replaced with store assets. Your 2 kaiju models that took you 9 months to skin don't even acknowledge the player is there half the time. The water doesn't work. You can walk right into this. I know this because I played it. You're watching my gameplay footage right now. This is not Kickstarter ready. It is very far away from being Kickstarter ready. You're promising 13 builds this year in your first chief chat in quite a long time. You're now 6 years overdue, and how many thousands of dollars in subscription fees overdue? You were taking subscriptions this whole time while giving people removing the ability for people to cancel them, which is actually a crime in California. You're letting people cancel them now, but you were doing crime. You were selling one-off founders packs, like the ones you tried to entice people back with a few weeks ago. The subreddit for Ember, who don't like you anymore, thought that was a bit bold, and to be frank, if I saw this as an early access game on Steam, I would be suspicious it was an asset flip. I think every single person financially involved with your venture deserves financial transparency. Speaking of financial transparency,
What is the non-profit people are asking about in the chat? What is it?
I have no idea because I've never founded a nonprofit. And this is why I'm filing a report with the FBI.
so firstly, I haven't seen Kash Patel yet, so I don't think he filed that report. Also, that's factually incorrect, Mark.
We need an organization, one that speaks for us, one that's willing to defend gamers' rights. That's why I founded League for Gamers. League for Gamers is an independent, non-profit advocacy group for gamers and like-minded developers.
At this point, team, if he says something and doesn't have like 3 separate pieces of evidence to back it up, more fool us, I guess. Here is the State of California documentation showing that League for Gamers was founded by you. You might notice it's a not-for-profit. You might not have heard of League for Gamers, and that's okay. On Jan 18th, 2012, Red 5 skipped E3 to protest SOPA/Piper. They donated their E3 funds of $50,000 to Mark's new charity called the League for Gamers. 4 days after that, FoxyFighters.com went free-for-all to access, by the way, so he was juggling a few jobs at that point. He was the head of Red 5, running a business as a porn king, his own words, not mine, and head of a not-for-profit. Busy guy, Hope he managed to keep it up and didn't commingle funds or spend time on Foxy Fighters while he was meant to be CEO. I hope there's no track record of him disappearing for weeks at a time. I'm busting his balls. On November 12th, 2012, League for Gamers' first tweet directs readers to join an email campaign at leagueforgamers.org. And on Jan 13th, 2013, League for Gamers posts its first and last weekly update at leagueforgamers.org. Stop asking this man for regular updates, by the way. I think it's here. Mark gets a bit busy. He leaves Red 5. I say leave because others claim he was forced out. He makes a statement calling it his Kobayashi Maru, which implies that he left Red 5 of his own volition. I don't think we'll ever know definitively unless someone else on the board makes a statement, and it's the someone else that needs to make the statement, not him. Another year later brings us to March 7th, 2015. League for Gamers posts its first tweet since weekly update, promising a new website. Blessed with more time, I guess he's a bit less employed than before. We come to August 28th, 2015, and in response to PAX Prime's new dress code, Grummz starts the hashtag PAX Naval Policy to encourage people to post photos of belly buttons. That's a thing he's into. Not judging if that's your thing, I'm just making a note of it because this spins off into the hashtag Navals for Grummz, where he retweets lolicon content. I'm not bringing this up to pedo jacket the man. In fact, I'm just kind of putting the jacket on a seat beside him, and you can decide if it fits. I'm just making a note of it because this spins off into a section exclusively for this stuff right on the League for Gamers website. For some reason. This is a part I've been stuck on this whole time. He's real public with the lolicon, but real private with the sexy lesbian catfights. The human psyche is fascinating, but eventually League for Gamers shuts down. Its website is open sourced on April 3rd, 2017, so you too can start your own League for Gamers. My big question about this here, aside from the lolly and gamer content, is the legal status and where that 50k that I mentioned went. The original non-for-profit was dissolved in 2015 by the state of California because documentation wasn't filed in 2013 or 2014. That's a real big pattern there with Mark's businesses, by the way. The man just loves saving trees. However, a second League for Gamers was registered in Delaware about 5 months later by a broker as a for-profit corporation. United States Corporation Agents is an online legal services company who can file these things on your behalf for privacy reasons. The timeline there alone kind of raises that red flag. It's been removed as a not-for-profit in California, but you're obviously still operating the entity, and like I mentioned, you did this interview on December 17th, 2015 with the GG.com confirming your involvement. So that raises a very pertinent question of where did that 50k go? California nonprofits are required by law to publicly disclose how they spend their money. I can't seem to find those publicly disclosed documents that would tell me what that 50k was spent on. League for Gamers was around for a couple of years, so 2 as a not-for-profit, but there was no disclosure. Maybe Red 5 didn't send the money and just said they did for clout, which is a red flag of its own, but maybe the money was sent and League for Gamers didn't hold up its end of the bargain. It's pretty weird. And speaking of pretty weird, let's talk about tax in the IRS. I found more tax liens. There's the one I spoke about in part 1 from Jan 28th, 2016. For those unaware, our big naval-loving boy is hit with a lien for $260,000 for unpaid taxes for the years 2013 and 2015. He's claimed that no backer money has gone to clear that particular debt, but to be honest, we've established a pattern here where his word isn't worth shit. So I'm going to also bring up another lien where the IRS came in for a piece with a lien of $839,027, according to a case in the California Superior Courts. Firstly, I'm not even mad, I'm impressed. $1 million in Dodge taxes, insanely well done. You were doing well for yourself there with your CEO golden parachute. Secondly, can you confirm you've not paid off that lien with backer funds as well? Because that would be something you'd also be shitting and pissing about if the shoe was on the other foot, Mark. We've got credible accusations of you mishandling funds at Red 5. Like, the bus is the pinnacle of that. There's a lot of devs stating you'd go away for weeks and come back and scrap all their work. That's a huge waste of money on just a salary level. MEK Entertainment, which became Voxel Noughts, made some very public accusations with lawyers involved as well. How can we be assured you're not doing the same with Ember? And it's not even going to be called Ember because you didn't even register that trademark. Someone else released the game with that name. The cost to register a trademark in California is $70 per classification code, by the way. So you could have secured your game for like, what, $300 on every possible venue that you wanted to put it into at some point in the last decade? How many loans have you taken out against yourself to pay for the art refresh you started a few years ago? You've been making this game for so long that an art refresh is needed before the Kickstarter demo is done. How fucking insane is that? The art pass is still in progress. He hasn't paid it off yet. To make matters worse, he's upgrading to the latest version of Unreal Engine for some reason. Like, that would be a vibe if you were going to take advantage of a major tech upgrade, but you're just doing the same game and hiding the lack of progress by now just showing screenshots on Twitter. Like I said, we're getting water that doesn't fucking work. I think a bit of an omni-shambles at this point, really. We're through the woods, as it were. I want to cover one of Mark's biggest claims to fame. That's his career at Blizzard. I want to take issue with his claim he invented fishing in World of Warcraft. This is nitpicky, but bear with me. He's claimed quite repeatedly that he invented fishing for his wife.
So the other mini games we got in here were things like fishing. And fishing almost didn't happen. And the reason fishing is in the game at all is because it was a gift to my wife, who loved fishing in Japanese RPGs and really, really wanted fishing in World of Warcraft. And so I went to one of the designers and programmers on the WoW team, and I said, hey, look, do you think we could get fishing in the game? It's just on a side project. Can we prototype something? Because I think fishing would be awesome. And they did. They got together a prototype and they showed me, and it was cool. It was fun, and I thought it was, and I was having a great time fishing. And a lot of people just love to sit out there on a pier and fish all day and WoW. And
I've been reading a book called The WoW Diary by John Sartz. John is and was the first 3D level designer on World of Warcraft, so he's been around for a while. Here's his take on fishing in the game. Here's the whole segment. Eric Dodds was the first designer on the team, and he had spent years planning the minimum necessary features and functionality required for the game's crafted equipment. Eric always got the most bang for his buck, and only asked for features or interface elements that could be used in multiple ways. The only outlier in the trade skill system that required special functionality was fishing, but it barely took Sam Lantinga a couple of days to code. So Eric made fishing a click-on-the-bobber minigame requiring human interaction, which would hopefully make it harder for players to automate with hacks. I'm not seeing a Mark Kern there. In fact, when I Control-F Mark through the document, what I get is Mark Kern was the producer in charge of programming tasks. Not really a designer? That's it. I have issue with the way he's been positioning himself as the main source of all that's good in classic WoW. This is just a nice example. It's a neat book. I highly recommend it. It is aggressively generous to Mark. John is the only Blizzard employee who's really maintained regular public contact with Mark. So it's like, there's no way you can really claim this is being unfair to him. But I looked through it and it's like, yeah, he was in charge of programming. Oh, okay, he hired the right programmers who did the actual work.
Jason Schreier wrote a history of Blizzard book, and he completely erased me from the book because he hates me, because he's a shithead. He's a legacy media shithead. I was the team lead. I saved the project from cancellation. I built the team. I led.
It's something I just take issue with, and I just kind of get annoyed at that he's allowed to build this bullshit into clout where he's scamming people for close to $2 million. You might notice we're coming to the end here, so I want to talk about where some of this info came from. I saw some people upset I didn't credit some YouTubers for some reason, like McDizzle, Upper Echelon, Nasmia9. McDizzle and I were both aware of this info being pulled. I wasn't operating under the assumption I had to credit him for stuff that I was showing him and he was showing us. I recommend checking his stuff out if you're desperate for more Grummz lore. Nasmia9's done some really good work digging into the financials of Mark. His content is worth checking out even if you don't want to look at gamer grift stuff. He does really good content. Speaking of sources, the initial timeline, spreadsheet in part 1 came together from about 4 days total, all from publicly available state and federal government sources, places like archive.org and the Wayback Machine, a lot of which we archived ourselves because there was nothing archived. Mark actively deleted most of his Foxy Fighter stuff in a panic. He just kind of let it all sit out there for some reason, because as shown in the timeline, he keeps going back to Debbie-chan like a comfort anime. There's claims from Mark that even possessing his plaintext password is illegal, and I'll be frank, I've never seen the full password dump that Grummz is mad about. I saw a single screenshot that showed that Grummz and Foxy Fighters shared a password. I went to a reverse Whois search, checked the Foxy Fighter history, and saw his name there. Also, the Foxy Fighter email address shows up on his $11 background check. Those companies are fucking scary. In the glorious United States of America, the First Amendment protects the publication of truthful information received from a human source, which is the case here. Even if it wasn't, it's lucky there was a case in 2001 called Bartnicki v. Vopper, the Supreme Court rule that doesn't matter if the source was obtained unlawfully as long as the publisher did not participate in the illegal action and merely received the information from the source. So people keep threatening to sick Kash Patel on me. That's pretty funny. The man looks like he's just seen a Scooby-Doo ghost. Anyway, when you have credible tax dodging allegations, why are you threatening to go to the cops?
And this is why I'm filing a report with the FBI.
Here is what I think is going to happen. Mark is going to find one piece of this video he can prove I got wrong. He'll claim the $50K for League for Gamers was not donated in cash, but in labor. All public League of Gamers activities seem to have come from Red 5 employees, so would that not then make him a liar saying he's donated money multiple times? Anyway, it'll be something like that. One piece of the video is wrong, therefore all of it is wrong. I do want to clarify that this has been presenting public information as best we can. Both parts of this video have both been about presenting public information. That itself isn't wrong. This speculation is all done in earnest. I'm not just making stuff up. Any gaps in accuracy are due to him actually purging information from the internet before it could be validated. So from there, he will attack the messenger. He called us an SJW of the left. He's going to reverse the victim and offender here, right? He's the victim. The wokies are attacking him. They're not after me. They're after you. I'm just in the way. I am genuinely, unflinchingly happy to be proven wrong about these points. As it stands, there are genuine, honest concerns that Mark is committing fraud. He is a chronic and habitual liar who will do anything under the sun to whip people into a frenzy so they stay angry and they keep liking and subscribing to him and giving him money. I think anyone who takes crowdfunded money for close to a decade deserves this level of scrutiny. Now, to his credit, Mark says the culture war is winding down, and I'm gonna make him a deal. I have a list. I'm blatantly taking this one from Nasmin9. Grummz has refused to answer quite a few questions. Do you deny the allegations you misappropriated funds for Voxelnauts, funneling it to your family and friends? With that accusation on you, do you see the highly suspect nature of a tax lien of $265,000 levied against you in January 2016 and your first crowdfunding, with intentions of many more, being June 2016? Can you prove that you did not spend your backers' money on the tax lien or any other past debts? Your word is not enough on this. Let's add the federal tax lien to that one, milli plus. Why did you go radio silent on backers for 2 years, only coming back when they were about to pull their subscriptions with the reasoning your family was sick? Why did you not update the backers about this from the very start? Why does it take you a year to release one update from the demo, the contents of which is what any other solo indie dev can achieve in a fraction of the time? And I'm going to add one onto the end. Can you address the allegations about misappropriation of funds as the head of League for Gamers? Because as it stands, I'm seeing, a few crimes done there. Answer those, log off and release your game. I know it's hard. You had a no 0 days channel in the Discord that rapidly turned into mostly 0 days. You tried to move the entire community back to x.com, only back to Discord. You took 2 years past the due date to even get it to a playable state. In 5 years, it's barely improved. To top it off, you took the forums down 6 months ago. More than 6 months ago. You promised they'd be back up soon. we're still not ready for a Kickstarter. You're going so far as to build consent for not running a Kickstarter in your most recent chief chat that I listened to. There are a few things that piss me off more. As a capital G gamer, I have been playing video games my whole life. Then someone scamming people in a crowdfunded game. If Mark wasn't squeaky clean, this video wouldn't exist, and I'd just be on Twitter or Blue Sky calling him a sad lolicon pervert and ignoring him. Many people would be too. For those listening, if you're wanting to just move on from all this, I don't blame you. I'm going to after this. People in Mark's position pay their bills from this attention. They want cheap YouTube views, and they want the X.com blue checkmark dollars. It comes from you being angry and them keeping you angry. I'm not telling people to not criticize games. Far from it. Assassin's Creed Shadows fucking sucked. Not because it nebulously woke. It sucked because it was just the same Ubisoft bullshit for the 4th game in a row. I and many others would respect your opinions more if you complained about how games cost $20 more than they used to for slightly shinier graphics. That if you complain that they take a year and a half longer than they used to and ended up with 3 times the bugs. If you complain that AAA studios are just reheating the same stuff with endless remakes. How many versions of Skyrim are there now? By the time between I made part 1 of this video and now, they've made a woke Oblivion remake. I think a bunch of people, some of you watching them right now, have let yourselves be negatively polarized in your own hug boxes so you don't actually enjoy video games anymore, and you have to wait for permission from your favorite blorbo rage-baiting YouTuber to play it. Like, is Marvel Rivals woke? These people cry as they transvestigate Emma Frost. Like, it must be fucking torture to be this eternally miserable with every game release. Getting that angry all the time over a woman with a side shave and a slightly too angular jaw. And it's that part there. Like, please do your own research about some of these topics, come to your own conclusions. Don't let people whose entire incomes and popularity come off the controversy they're selling you, telling you how to feel and act. I guarantee your life will be much happier if you approach things a bit more constructively, instead of letting a man who has not released a commercially successful game in 20 years telling you what to be mad about. Find a cool indie game with a unique premise, try it, and if it's good, tell the dev they're doing a good job. You have statistically 25 games in your Steam library from those Humble Bundles 5 years ago. Go play those. Just try and enjoy something for once. Try and actually get genuine enjoyment instead of looking at a trailer and going, it must be woke, there's a lightly brown woman in there. Buddy, I'm playing shit on itch.io you've never heard of, and I'm having a great fucking time. It rules. The alternative is, because a bunch of you are typing in the comments angrily right now, don't do that. I'm not your dad, you don't owe me anything, and you don't need to take advice from a woke leftist soy boy. You are welcome to ignore me entirely. It's up to you, dog. The important part here is that you make your own decisions and come to your own conclusions. I won't be making another video about this dude unless he does something horrendously fucking stupid. He fucking sucks. Stay subscribed to me if you want. I'm going to be making cool videos about other parts of the internet. I'm almost done with a complete history of 4chan and its ancestors going back to 1995, and some of the episodes from my podcast I'm going to do into like proper YouTube video stuff. So, namaste. Have a nice day. Justice for Mad Dog.
This is my struggle. You sit there on your couch alone, waiting for Rei to phone, watching reruns of The View. You all